Good morning to you all. I am from Sri Lakshmi Narayana Institute of Medical Sciences, Department of Pathology. I am Dr. Pami Sinha, Professor and HOD, Department of Pathology, SLIMS. And I am going to discuss about the inflammation of bone, that is osteomyelitis and gout. So this is regarding the bone, osteomyelitis and gout. So osteomyelitis, it's an inflammation of bone and bone marrow and always implies infection. That infection can be viruses, parasites, fungi, and bacteria. Pyogenic bacteria and mycobacteria are most common organisms for this osteomyelitis. But some opportunistic infections are also seen in immunosuppressed patients. So who are the immunosuppressed patient? Patient are on of diabetes mellitus, or they are of immunosuppressive therapy for the tumors, for the cancers, or for the transplant. So these people are given immunosuppressive therapy. So types of osteomyelitis are pyogenic osteomyelitis, tuberculous osteomyelitis, and skeletal syphilis. So pyogenic osteomyelitis is due to the bacteria, pyogenic bacteria. Tuberculous osteomyelitis is due to Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and skeletal syphilis is due to Trypanosoma pallidum. Now we'll come to pyogenic osteomyelitis. It is caused by bacteria, and how the organisms will reach to the bone either by hematogenous spread or extension from a contiguous site or from direct implantation. Most cases of osteomyelitis are hematogenous in origin and develop in the long bones or vertebral body. So predisposing factor for pyogenic bacteria, pyogenic osteomyelitis is bacteremia that may follow occult injury to the intestinal mucosa during defecation or vigorous chewing of hard food or minor infections of the skin. So from these conditions, bacteria can go to the bloodstream, that is known as bacteremia. Staphylococcus aureus is responsible for almost 80 to 90% of cases that express a receptor for collagen, facilitating its adherence to bony tissue. Next is Escherichia coli or E. coli, Pseudomonas, and Klebsiella. These organisms are causing infections in the genitourinary tract infections and intravenous drug abusers. Mixed bacterial infections are also seen, and that can cause direct spread or inoculation of organisms during surgery or open fracture. In case of neonatal period, Haemophilus influenza and group B streptococci, they are the frequent pathogens and salmonella infections. So these infections are seen in neonatal period. Metaphyseal vessels penetrate the growth plate, and that will cause infection of metaphysis, epiphysis, or both. In children, localization of microorganism in the metaphysis is typical. In adult, that is after the growth plate closure, the metaphyseal vessels reunite with their epiphyseal counterparts and provide a route for bacteria to seed the epiphysis and subchondral regions in the adult. So morphology of pyogenic osteomyelitis, depending on the stages, it can be acute stage, subacute, or chronic. Acute is shorter duration, chronic is longer duration. Acute, we have the cells are neutrophilic inflammation, neutrophilic infiltration, whereas the chronic will have mononuclear inflammation or infiltration. In between acute and chronic comes the subacute. The bacteria proliferate and induce an acute inflammatory reaction and cause cell death. The entrapped bone undergoes necrosis within the first 48 hours. The bacteria and inflammation spread within the shaft of the bone and may percolate throughout the Haversian system to reach the periosteum and cause subperiosteal abscess. That will cause lifting of the periosteum that impairs the blood supply to the affected region. Both suppurative and ischemic injury cause segmental bone necrosis, and that will cause the dead piece of the bone inside the inflammatory area, and that is known as sequestrum. So what is sequestrum? Sequestrum is the dead piece of the bone which is present in osteomyelitis due to vascular injury, that is known as sequestrum. This is the most important MCQ. Then rupture of the periosteum can cause abscess in the surroundings of tissue and formation of a draining sinus. So next complication or next morphological thing is sinus formation due to the formation of abscess in the surroundings of tissue and can lead to sinus formation. So this is the chronic osteomyelitis. You can see the picture. This is the radius and the ulna. The granular bone is the involucrum and the circular defects are cloaca through which pus has drained. So this is the radius and this is the ulna, and this is the cloaca or the draining area from which pus has drained. So this is the granular bone. It is the involucrum. This is the cut surface of the femur. The pus drained through a sinus for the next 50 years, a thick bony involucrum surrounding a chronic inflammatory abscess in the marrow cavity. So this involucrum means it's a new bone formation surrounding the dead bone or surrounding the inflammatory abscess. So this is the abscess cavity in the marrow cavity, and this is the new bone which are formed around this, that is known as involucrum. In infants, epiphyseal infection spreads through the articular surface or along capsular and tendinoligaments insertion into a joint that will cause septic or suppurative arthritis. Sometimes causing extensive destruction of the articular cartilage and permanent disability will be seen in these patients. After the first week of infection, chronic inflammatory cells becomes numerous because now it is going for the chronic inflammation. The release of cytokines from leukocytes will cause osteoclastic bone resorption, ingrowth of fibrous tissue, and the deposition of reactive bone in the periphery. Reactive woven or lamellar bone width may be deposited as a sleeve of living tissue around a segment of devitalized bone that is known as involucrum. So what is involucrum? Involucrum is a new bone formation or reactive bone or woven or lamellar bone. It can be deposited in the living tissue around a devitalized bone or dead bone that is known as involucrum. So the gross picture what we see is the drainage tract in the subperiosteal shell of variable new bone, that is involucrum, reveals the inner native necrotic cortex that is known as sequestrum. So sequestrum is the dead piece of the bone in the osteomyelitis due to vascular necrosis, and surrounding that is the formation of new bone that is known as involucrum. So these are the two words for MCQ. Morphological variants of osteomyelitis are also seen. That is known as, one is Brody's abscess. So Brody's abscess is a small intraosseous abscess, involves the cortex and is walled off by reactive bone. That is known as Brody's abscess. This is your another MCQ. So Brody's abscess is seen in case of chronic osteomyelitis. Next one is sclerosing osteomyelitis of Gare. Sclerosing osteomyelitis of Gare is seen, typically develops in the jaw. So where it is, what is the site of sclerosing osteomyelitis of Gare? It is in the jaw and is associated with extensive new bone formation. So there will be extensive new bone formation, and that is why there will be sclerosis in that area, and that is known as sclerosing osteomyelitis of Gare, which is seen in the jaw in the chronic osteomyelitis. This is again your MCQ. So clinical feature of osteomyelitis is acute systemic illness with malaise, fever with chills, leukocytosis, and throbbing pain over the affected region. That means these all are the signs of acute inflammation. So whenever acute inflammation will be there will be fever with chills, leukocytosis, and throbbing pain. Because of the abscess formation, throbbing pain will be there in the affected region. So how we can diagnose? We can diagnose by X-ray. So characteristic X-ray findings of a lytic focus of bone destruction surrounded by a zone of sclerosis. Blood culture will be positive in that because there will be bacteremia in the pyogenic osteomyelitis. So blood culture will be positive. Biopsy will reveal combination of, biopsy will reveal the inflammation of the bone, and there will be inflammatory cells, and combination of antibiotics and surgical drainage is usually curative. In 5 to 25% of cases, acute osteomyelitis fails to resolve and will lead to chronic infection or chronic osteomyelitis. So complications of osteomyelitis or chronic osteomyelitis is pathological fracture, secondary amyloidosis, endocarditis, sepsis, squamous cell carcinoma in the sinus tract, and rarely sarcoma in the infected bone. Now we'll come to tuberculous osteomyelitis. Osteomyelitis due to tuberculosis. This is seen in developing countries like India. Adolescents or young adults are the people who are getting more chances of tuberculous osteomyelitis. In developed countries, it is seen in older and immunosuppressed patients because people are having less immune system, so they can get more easily this infection. And 1 to 3% of patients with pulmonary or extrapulmonary tuberculosis have osseous infections. So primary site will be in the pulmonary or extrapulmonary tuberculosis, from where we get the bony infection, and that is known as tuberculous osteomyelitis. So clinical feature of tuberculous osteomyelitis is pain on motion, localized tenderness, low-grade fever, chills, and weight loss. Rarely an inguinal mass represent a cold fluctuant psoas abscess. So psoas muscle will also show the abscess that is known as psoas abscess. So complications of tuberculous osteomyelitis we see is severe destruction of vertebra that will cause permanent compression of fractures. There may be scoliosis or kyphosis deformity. So what do you mean by scoliosis? It's a lateral bending of vertebra that is known as scoliosis. Kyphosis, it is a forward bending of forward bending of vertebra, that is known as kyphosis. Neurologic deficits is secondary to spinal cord and nerve compression. Other complications are tuberculous arthritis, that is joint infection by tuberculosis, sinus tract formation, and amyloidosis. So all these are the complications of tuberculous osteomyelitis. So morphology of tuberculous osteomyelitis, if we see, is due to direct extension from a pulmonary focus into a rib or from tracheobronchial nodes into the adjacent vertebra. So this is due to direct infection or extension from the pulmonary tuberculosis, or it can be via draining lymphatics. The bony infection is usually solitary. The patients with AIDS, the bone infection is multifocal. In the patients with AIDS, the bony infection will be multifocal. That is, multiple area of bone will show the osteomyelitis. The spine, especially the thoracic and lumbar vertebra, are the most common site of skeletal involvement, followed by the knees and the hips. Tuberculous osteomyelitis is more destructive and resistant to control. The infection spread through medullary cavity and causes extensive necrosis. In the spine, it is known as Pott's disease. The infection breaks through intervertebral disc to involve multiple vertebra and extends into the soft tissue, forming abscesses. So this is the picture of pyogenic osteomyelitis and tuberculous osteomyelitis of vertebra. In the bacterial osteomyelitis or pyogenic osteomyelitis, it expands from one vertebral body to the next by direct invasion of intervertebral disc and push posteriorly into the spinal canal. The sequence of events in the marrow cavity is similar to that in a long bone. In tuberculous osteomyelitis, the bone is destroyed by resorption of bony trabeculae, which results in mechanical collapse of vertebra and extrusion of intervertebral disc. Tuberculous organism cannot penetrate the intervertebral disc directly, and they extend from one vertebra to another vertebra after mechanical forces destroyed and extrudes the intervertebral disc. So this is the intact vertebra. This is the extrusion of the disc after collapse of the vertebra. This is the tuberculous pus with granuloma with lysis and collapse of the bone. You can see here that bone is collapsed here, and anterior extrusion of pus to form a psoas abscess in tuberculosis. Whereas in pyogenic bacterial infection or pyogenic osteomyelitis, this pus extends directly into the disc from the bone, and this will cause posterior extrusion of pus into the spinal canal. So this is the difference between pyogenic osteomyelitis and tuberculous osteomyelitis. This is the Pott's disease, tuberculous spondylitis or tuberculous osteomyelitis. A vertebral body is almost completely replaced by tubercular tissue. And this is the preservation of intervertebral discs. So intervertebral discs are preserved, whereas the bone is completely replaced by tubercular tissue. Now we'll come to skeletal syphilis. Bone involvement remains infrequent because the disease is readily diagnosed and treated nowadays. So skeletal syphilis is difficult to see now. But in congenital syphilis, the bony lesion begin to appear from the 5th month of gestation and are fully developed at birth. The spirochetes, that is Trypanoma pallidum, tends to localize in active enchondral ossification, that is known as osteochondritis, and in the periosteum, that is known as periosteoitis. So it can cause inflammation of osteochondritis and periosteoitis. Acquired syphilis is seen in the tertiary stage of syphilis. So syphilis has got 3 stages: primary stage, secondary stage, and tertiary stage. So bony infection is seen in case of tertiary stage, which is there 2 to 5 years after the initial infections, and bones can be involved in tertiary stage, especially the nose, palate, skull, and extremities, especially the long tubular bones, tibia, and that will cause Saber shin in tibia, which is massive reactive periosteal bone deposition on the medial and anterior surface of the tibia. So Saber shin is your MCQ. Saber shin seen in tertiary stage of bony syphilis, and it is seen in the tibia. This is the congenital syphilis of a bone, a cross-section of tubular bone infected by syphilis, which shows marked periosteal new bone formation. The medullary cavity is filled with a lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate that replaces normal marrow and fat. The cortex is irregularly destroyed by osteoclastic resorption, a process that stimulates periosteal new bone formation. So that can cause reactive new bone formation in congenital syphilis of bone. Morphologically, you can see edematous granulation tissue, which contains numerous plasma cells and necrotic bone, and their formation of gammata. Gammata is your MCQ. So this gammata is the granulomatous inflammation in that. So the spirochetes can be demonstrated in the inflammatory tissue with special silver stain. Now we'll come to gouty arthritis. Gout is due to disorder of purine metabolism, which is manifested by increased serum uric acid level, recurrent attacks of acute arthritis, monosodium urate and monohydrate crystals demonstrable in the leukocyte in synovial fluid, deposition of crystals in and around the joints. Uric acid nephrolithiasis will cause renal disease involving interstitial tissue and blood vessel. So gout, these are 2 types, metabolic and renal. Renal can be primary or secondary. Metabolic is due to overproduction of purine, which can be de novo or increased turnover of the cells, and renal is due to decreased excretion of these purine metabolism. So what is the morphology of acute gouty arthritis? Is the precipitation of crystals which is ingested by leukocytes, and leukocytes get activated, and that can activate the complement system, release of lysosomal product, and destruction of normal tissue. So this is the flow chart for etiopathogenesis of gout. Hyperuricemia can lead to precipitation of urate crystals in the joints that can be phagocytosed by macrophages, release of interleukin 1b and other cytokines, and cause destruction of these cartilage and synovium, and release of proteases that can cause tissue injury and inflammation. On other side, activation of complement and kinase system that can cause neutrophil chemotaxis. This will cause phagocytosis of crystals by neutrophils, lysis of neutrophils, release of crystals. Again, these crystals are engulfed and engulfed by some other neutrophils, and that can cause release of lysosomal enzyme, and that can cause tissue injury and inflammation. This can also cause release of leukotriene B4 and prostaglandins, free radicals, That can again cause neutrophil chemotaxis and the cycle goes on. This is chronic tophaceous arthritis, recurrent attack of acute arthritis, synovial proliferation, thanos formation, destruction of cartilage and subchondral bone, and tophi in soft tissue and in renal lesion. So this is the gout. This one is the gout. Tophi of the hands appear as multiple rubbery nodules, one of which is ulcerated here. This is the cross section of the gout that shows a tophaceous collection of the toothpaste-like urate crystals here in the cut section. This is the microscopic section, histologic section in bright field, demonstrate brownish monosodium urate crystal within the bone. This one is high power micrograph in polarized light with a quartz compensator plate, demonstrate negative birefringence of crystals. Those having their long axis parallel to the slow compensator axis are yellow. And this is the section through the tophi. This demonstrates a foreign body reaction around a pink amorphous lesion from which the urate crystals have been dissolved in processing. So we get the foreign body type of granulomatous reaction in around the urate crystals. This is the radiological feature of gout. This is the first metatarsophrynggeal joints. Joint shows a lytic lesion that destroyed the joint space here. There is an adjacent soft tissue tophus as well as surrounding edema. So this is the commonest site of gout in the great toe. There will be pain and tenderness here in the great toe. This is amputated toe with white tophi involving the joint and the soft tissue. So this is the tophi here. And this is the gouty tophus, aggregate of dissolved urate crystals, which is dissolved during the processing, surrounded by reactive fibroblasts, mononuclear inflammatory cells, and giant cells. So this is the foreign body giant cell granuloma around the tophi, which is dissolved during the processing of the tissue. Okay. So these are my references from Robbins, Rubens, and Underwood. Thank you very much.